USS Tucker was a Mahan-class destroyer in the United States Navy. She was named for Samuel Tucker, an officer in both the Continental Navy and the United States Navy. Her class introduced major advances over traditional destroyers, including a third set of quadruple torpedo tubes, protective gun shelters, and emergency diesel generators, along with a steam propulsion system that was simpler and more efficient to operate. Tucker began her service in 1936. Following shakedown, the new destroyer was assigned to the United States Battlefleet in San Diego, California, operating along the West Coast and in the Hawaiian Islands. She participated in naval exercises in the Caribbean and was then reassigned to duty between the West Coast and Hawaii. After a goodwill tour to New Zealand, the ship returned to Pearl Harbor. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on the 7th of December 1941, Tucker was berthed at the East Lock in Pearl Harbor undergoing overhaul but sustained no damage. Afterward, Tucker escorted convoys between the West Coast and Hawaii. She then did escort work to American Samoa, the Fiji Islands, New Caledonia, and Espiritu Santo, New Hebrides. Tucker entered the harbor at Espiritu Santo's western entrance, leading the cargo ship SS Nera Luckenbach, unaware they had entered a minefield laid earlier by U.S. Navy mine layers. After striking at least one mine, the destroyer's hull was almost torn in two at the No.1 stack, killing all three of the crew in the forward fireroom. The rest of the crew survived, but Tucker did not. The destroyer slowly settled in the water and then folded up like a jackknife. An investigation revealed that Tucker had been given no information about the existence of the minefield design. Tucker displaced 1,500 long tons at standard load and 1,725 long tons at deep load. The ship's overall length was 341 feet 3 inches, the beam was 35 feet 6 inches, and her draft was 10 feet 7 inch. She was powered by two General Electric geared steam turbines that developed a total of 46,000 shaft horsepower for a maximum speed of 37 knots. Her four Babcock and Amp Wilcox Foster Wheeler water tube boilers generated the superheated steam needed for the turbines. Tucker carried a maximum of 523 long tons of fuel oil, with a range of 6,940 nautical miles at 12 knots. Her peacetime complement was 158 officers and enlisted men. The wartime complement increased to approximately 250 officers and enlisted men. Like the other destroyers in her class, Tucker had a tripod foremast and a pole mainmast. To improve the anti-aircraft field of fire, the tripod foremast was constructed without nautical rigging. In silhouette, the ship was similar to the larger Porter class that immediately preceded her. She was fitted with the first emergency diesel generators, replacing the storage batteries of earlier destroyers. Gun crew shelters were built fore and aft for the superimposed weapons. A third quadruple set of torpedo tubes was added, with one mount on the centerline and two in the side positions. This required relocating one 5.38 caliber gun to the aft deck house. The ship's design incorporated a new generation of land-based propulsion machinery, boiler pressures capable of reaching 600 psi-power type pressure turbines with double reduction gears, making it possible for the ship's turbines to run faster and more efficiently than previous destroyer designs. Armament. The main battery of Tucker consisted of 5 5.38 caliber guns, equipped with the Mk-33 gunfire control system. Each gun was dual-purpose, configured for surface and aerial targets. The ship's anti-aircraft battery had 4 water-cooled, 50-caliber machine guns. The ship was fitted with 3 quadruple torpedo tube mounts for 12 21-inch torpedoes, guided by the Mk-27 torpedo fire control system. Depth charge roll-off racks were rigged on the stern of the ship. In early 1942, the Navy began to refit the Mahan-class destroyers with new anti-aircraft armament, although most of the class was not refitted until sometime in 1944. According to Hodges and Friedman, probably the first to rearm was Flusser. January 1943. Service history. Tucker, one of the 18 ships constructed in the Mahan-class design, was built at the Norfolk Navy Yard in Portsmouth, Virginia. She was the second vessel to be named for Samuel Tucker, who had been an officer in both the Continental Navy and the United States Navy. Tucker's keel was laid down on the 15th of August 1934. She was launched on the 26th of February 1936 and christened by Mrs. Leonard Thorner. The ship was commissioned on the 23rd of July 1936, with Lieutenant Commander George T. Hood in command. Following her shakedown cruise in the western Atlantic, Tucker joined the destroyer forces attached to the United States Battle Fleet based in San Diego, California. As part of Destroyer Squadron 3, Destroyer Division 6, she operated with the battle force along the west coast and in the Hawaiian Islands. In February 1939, she took part in Fleet Problem XX, the naval exercise in the Caribbean that was observed by President Franklin D. Roosevelt aboard Houston. As the international situation in the Pacific worsened, the fleet was ordered to return to Hawaiian waters in the early part of 1940. During fleet exercises around Wake Island in June 1940, Tucker buttressed her fuel supply by rigging sails, allowing the ship to proceed at over 3 knots. She maintained her steerage and lingered on station for several days. Tucker operated between the West Coast and Hawaii through the end of the year. On the 14th of February 1941, she arrived at Pearl Harbor from San Diego and then proceeded to New Zealand, arriving at Auckland on the 17th of March to show the flag in that area of the world. Returning to Pearl Harbor from the South Pacific, she took part in routine exercises at sea before returning to her home port of San Diego on the 19th of September. After a short stay, Tucker steamed to Hawaii as part of Task Force 19 and began operating again in the Hawaiian Islands in November 1941. Shortly afterwards, she put into Pearl Harbor for an overhaul by a destroyer tender. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on the 7th of December 1941, Tucker was moored at berth X9 East Lock, along with 4 other destroyers and 1 destroyer tender, the Whitney, Selfridge, Case Reed, and Conyngham. None of the ships sustained any damage. While all the destroyers were undergoing overhaul, they still managed to open fire on the attacking Japanese aircraft. After overhaul, Tucker patrolled off Pearl Harbor, escorted convoys between the West Coast and Hawaii, and then steamed to the South Pacific. With the reinforcement of United States island bases in the Pacific, Tucker escorted right to Tutuila, American Samoa. As part of the drive to fortify these outposts, the destroyer then escorted her charge to Suva, Fiji Islands, and proceeded to Naumea, New Caledonia. Steaming on for Australia, she arrived at Sydney on the 27th of April. After taking on fuel, she visited Melbourne, Perth, and Fremantle before heading back to Sydney. With right, Tucker returned to Suva, arriving on the 3rd of June 1942. For the remainder of June and into the first week of July, Tucker operated out of Suva, then relieved Boise the 10th of July to carry out convoy escort duties. On the 30th of July, the ship arrived at Auckland and the following day steamed for Suva in the Fiji Islands. Fate. Docked at Suva, Tucker received orders to escort the cargo ship SS Nera-Lackenbach to Espiritu Santo, New Hebrides. On 1 August 1942, the ships left Suva by a route north of Afate Island and west of Malakula Island, making the way through the Bruat Channel. Both ships set courses to enter the Sagan Channel on the final leg of the voyage. On 4 August, Tucker was leading the cargo ship into the harbor at Espiritu Santo. As the destroyer headed into the western entrance, she struck at least one mine. The mine exploded and all but tore her hull in two at the No.1 stack, taking the lives of all 3 crew members on watch in the forward fireroom. The rest of ship's company survived, but the USS Tucker was through. The shattered destroyer slowly settled in the water and then folded up like a jackknife. Nera-Lackenbach and other vessels quickly rescued the destroyerman from the sinking ship. The stern of the Tucker sank the following morning and a diving party scuttled and sank the bow. Tucker had steamed into the Segundo Channel unaware that the mine layers Gamble, Breeze, and Tracy had laid a field of mines at its western entrance. An investigation revealed that Tucker had been given no information regarding the existence of the minefield. She was struck from the Navy list on 2 December 1944. Honors. Tucker received 1 battle star for her World War II service.